right, welcome back to another episode of Into the Valley. And at long last, 3 points on the board, a 1-0 win against Oxford at the Valley.
Yeah, so
It's nice just to get. I think we've been calling out for it, and I think we've discussed, haven't we, the fact that performances seem to be going in the right direction, but without those points on the board, it does start getting a bit squeaky. And it was just the perfect time, albeit I think we made probably a little bit more hard work than it needed to be. But
yeah, I think when you go over the full 90 minutes, I think we created more than enough to win that game quite comfortably. Saying that, you know, in the run that we've been in, to win 1-0 is perfect in a way, because it just shows that we can still be resolute at the back. I think we outplayed them majority of the game. They had a couple of little spells, which we'll obviously talk about, but generally I thought we were on top of the game. We said how it will massively favour us being back at the Valley. And I think that showed as well, and I think the fans played a part at sort of pushing the team on towards the end of the game. And I think, again, also like the changes we were able to bring on, finally Kelman being back in the squad, and also obviously being the key man to obviously get us over the line. So all in all, like a fantastic day. And also, we spoke about it before, but where we're sat in the league, we were getting a bit perilous with that bottom three, and I think that has now given us that lovely buffer with the games that we've got coming up as well, which are teams still scrapping around that neck of the woods. It gives us that sort of a bit more freedom maybe in those games to really sort of stamp our mark on the games, instead of being really nervy, which there was an element of nerviness to that game today, to be fair.
yeah, and I think with it, we had probably exhausted our buffer that we'd created at the beginning of the season, and I felt that it was now, at this point, we need to start picking back up points to build that back up, because as much as I haven't felt stupidly nervy, we definitely have hit that point where a few more results like that and we would then get dragged into it being a point, 2 points, and that's where I think it gets worrying. Whereas now you sit there, you're looking at the league table and you're thinking, okay, yeah, no, that buffer is back there, and it does allow for a tougher game to come round, and hopefully for us not to, one, get the, I think, relative bad luck of the injury mix with the kind of fixtures we were getting, but also, as we've discussed before, hopefully some lessons learnt that we don't go through another run of form like that.
Yeah, and I think fairly so. I think fans were sort of earmarking this game as a 3 point, 6 pointer, a big game, one that we needed to win. And I think the players will probably have felt that at the start of the game as well, that they would have known full well that like the win was so important in terms of giving us that sort of buffer, as we've spoken about, from the bottom three. And now all of a sudden we've got a bit more freedom to sort of push on.
Well, we've got arguably, I mean, at the moment, if you look at that table as it stands today, we've got a game in hand.
Yeah, we could be in
you're
middle
within the mid. Yeah, you're in the middle of the table, and actually, all the kind of good discussions recently of it being a bit more perilous look silly again.
Yeah, exactly. And also, weirdly, actually, I was looking, and if we do win our game in hand, we're closer to the playoffs than we are to the relegation. So that just shows you, doesn't it, like how tight the league is. So
I think it just highlights the championship as just how much of a madhouse, especially this year more than ever. I just look at the fixtures and I look at the results every week, and there's just, without doubt, just shock
even
and
today
surprise.
there was some mad results, to be fair. Yeah,
I think QPR got 4-1 over Leicester.
Yeah.
Sheffield United 3-0 against Brum.
Bristol beat Middlesbrough.
Yeah, like there's it's just all over, and I think, as I say, it's brilliant weekend and just lovely. So let's go into the game then in a little bit more depth. So let's start with the first half. I feel it was a game that we started a little bit slow. I think maybe the occasion and the fact that it was such a big game, I thought we kind of showed that a little bit. I don't think we were being very, albeit Oxford weren't doing much with what they had. I felt they were maybe the more in control team at the beginning of the game.
I think that's fair, and I think that's probably, you've hit the nail on the head in terms of, I think the occasion at the very beginning of the game probably put a bit of a nerviness into the players, and I think those sort of initial few minutes, Oxford sort of capitalised on that a little bit, and they're away from home, so maybe they've not got the fans there. They've got the away fans there, but majority of the ground are going to be a bit twitchy. And yeah, I think although that they maybe had their foot on the ball a little bit more than us throughout the whole game, really, but even in that first spell, nothing too mad to sort of worry about. There was little pot shots. There's one that was a decent hit from distance, but well wide
Yeah, I
of the
think
goal.
that was kind of the first chance of the game, but it was, yeah, it was a everything that they had. It was possession based, a bit of kind of passing around, but I thought probably of all the teams we played this season, they struck me as the most kind of the least
I'd
quality.
say like throughout the squad, you didn't really like even. Usually, a few players stand out, don't they? During
Well, I
the
look at,
game.
for example, when we played Blackburn, we were pretty scathing of them, but they had like your Todd Cantwell
Yeah.
who impressed, and I just didn't really feel. And I know they have got a few kind of injured players out. I think they've got that Brannigan who's quite good,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe sits a little bit more in that. But yeah, I just felt personally they're probably the worst side, albeit result wise we've had better results.
Mm.
They're probably the worst team we have played so far this season. You can tell.
I'd go along.
I think they are another team as well who are in a pretty tough run of form at the moment and are very low on confidence as well.
Yeah, 100%, and it showed. I think they were without a win in 9 now. So yeah, it showed, and I think where we've really struggled lately is playing against teams that have a real quality in the midfield and are able to ping the ball around. I don't feel like they really had that in their locker, and that meant that we could get our foot on the ball a bit more. All of a sudden, we were looking at pockets. We played some lovely little like sort of triangles and things like that, which we haven't been doing lately. So it was.
And I
refreshing,
think that's
actually.
probably where the game started changing. We did start moving and zipping the ball around a bit quicker. And what I really, really liked in this game, and I know maybe the quality of opposition allowed it with the fact they weren't playing the best, but the speed at which we would knock 1-2 and be down the wing, in on goal, whatever it might be.
The transitions.
The transitions, I thought at times, and it was a very, very strange first half because I thought you either got what looked like something clicking and a really, really good passage of play, or we looked like we were Sunday League down the park. Couldn't really, couldn't really kick a ball. It was we went through real kind of ups and downs throughout the half, but I felt it was a strength to strength half.
One thing I noticed as well, I think we started to see sort of the old sort of Carey sort of getting back to his best, where he was dribbling into the spaces in the middle of the park, sort of beating his man. He had a couple in that first half that he was very close to smashing them in, which again is what we're used to seeing from him. But those little things maybe we've seen sort of fizzle out in that sort of run of bad games we've had. All of a sudden we're like, okay, this is what we were used to seeing before. Which was really good. And I know the quality of opposition is you could argue is quite a bit lower. But you've still got you can only beat what's in front of you, and obviously
Well, also, this is a team that we say quality is lower, and yes, I think we did feel that on the day, but they are a team who recently did get a win against Ipswich. So they're not, I don't think any team in the Championship you can kind of scoff at, and I think you have to accept that there is a form of quality there.
yeah, 100%.
I think one player, before we go into just some of the key chances of that first half, that I really, really liked what I was seeing was Kane Ramsey as well. And I thought he was actually getting his foot on the ball and pushing up the pitch. And it's something that I think I felt when he came out the squad for that little period after his red card. I felt when he came back in, he didn't quite feel the same, and I felt maybe it was confidence, maybe it was a bit of neck out of joint. But I thought we saw Ramsey kind of back at his best in that regard, and actually seeing an attacking threat when the options weren't there pass wise. He'd dribble up a bit and then he'd push a man off, and he was actually creating space, which then would drag someone out of place, get it out to a Bree or whoever it was playing on that side. And I thought that was quite noticeable in this game.
You're right, and also I think like even just usually we're seeing us sort of ping it around at the back between the centre backs, maybe out to the left and right back, and then eventually just an arrowed ball up the pitch. This time I think we saw more, like you just said, of like being able to ping it out to like your Ramsey or Apter on the other side, where we were then dribbling up the sides of the pitch and actually pushing the play up quicker. And you said about the transitions being quicker as well, and that definitely was a factor today. And I think there's a lot of things that sort of helped with that. I think the opposition, I think the fact that we had obviously a lineup that probably worked well against the team we were playing. And I also will go on to Lieberman in a minute, but I think he was, from where we've sort of argued, he was sort of maybe not putting in a massive amount of effort in and not being very effective as being the sort of target man up top. Today, he was the epitome of like sort of that target man figure and winning every flick on. But actually, they weren't aimless this time around. They were sort of he was very good at sort of like flicking it on to the man near him. And that's where we were then able to create those like transitions and the little triangles and stuff like that, which I thought he played out his skin actually.
I thought he was brilliant, and like we always have conversation-wise, and I know we've had it around a few different players. If that is the Leeburn we can start seeing on a more consistent basis, and that comes the effort, the quality, the bits and pieces, everything in, we've got a hell of a player on our hands. And I think that's the frustration that we find with Leeburn is that when it all clicks into place, we see a really, really talented player to get excited about. And I love to see that from him. My caveat to it is the consistency in which we can see it. And it's the same. We've got conversations around people like TC on his day. In
Yeah.
moments, he can be incredible, but the consistency and hopefully these are platforms he can take to kind of go on from and show this over 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, whatever it might be. Because, yeah, he was absolutely immense. And if you are pretty much stereotypically putting in that target man role, what you'd want from it, I'm not sure he could have
He
done
played a
anything else today.
textbook. He played a textbook, and also
He was
like
but also for a target man, he was tracking
yeah,
that
which we're not
defence.
massively used to seeing from
Yeah.
him. So I think it shows again, like you said, it's in his locker. He's able to do these things. So if he can keep that up and put that into his game, the fans are only going to back him. Like, and today, like they appreciated everything he put in. Like you said, I think there was a time right near the end of the game, pretty much in the last sort of couple of minutes, and he was busting a gut to sort of. He managed to like put the ball out for a corner, but
It felt like he knew he was playing well, and he knew
yeah,
the fans are maybe kind of reacting
noticing.
to that, noticing it, and
Yeah.
it almost like just kind of gave him that bit of
Yeah.
energy at the end of the game. And as well, I thought every player as it got towards the end, but
Yeah.
we will move on to that. So I think of note in that first half, there were quite a few chances. I felt probably by the time the first half finished, I was quite amazed we weren't
We had
in
some
the
big
league.
chances in that stuff.
Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to do these in chronological order because I putting the game together as to where they were, but there were some big chances. I think the first of them was a lovely, lovely passage of play played into Alaf and a brilliant, like hooked pass over into Bree, who had a good shot. I think, look, like everything, you are looking at it as a right wing, well, right mid / right back who's got a shot. Yes, he's technically very good. I think if that's a striker, he'd be disappointed, but I thought he caught it quite well, and it showed. I thought it got the ground going, and
He put his foot for it, to be fair, and like the keeper's obviously got his body behind it, but he has scored a couple where he's lashed him across the goal this season, to be fair. So he's got that in his locker, like you said, but like he's probably obviously not maybe the absolute pinnacle of who you'd want on the end.
No, but I really did like one. I thought with a laugh, it showed that kind of. We saw it with the assist. Well, did it go down as his assist? I can't remember in the. I think it was, wasn't it, in the Brum game?
Yeah.
But I think seeing from it, he definitely has that kind of more assist side of his
Yeah.
game as well, which is where we've discussed about him maybe not being that relied on goal scorer, but actually that kind of middleman who ties stuff together and maybe does get down the wing or through the middle and
Yeah.
plays the pass out. But I thought it was a brilliant, brilliant one, and it seemed to. I think it was at that point is to kind of put us into a bit of life.
We were starting to put them under more pressure. Yeah.
There then was the chance, which I think then highlighted maybe Tanto's not as nice side, and it was a really quite scrappy, but it got kicked back to
But Lieber,
Lieber,
he
and
got a
he
good
got a
header
really
in,
good
didn't he?
header into, I think it was Sonny Carey,
Yeah.
and even he got a bit of a bundle through to Alaf. Now,
Mm.
when you look at it at first, you go, okay, look, it's a good save.
Yeah.
When I saw the highlight from behind the
Left
goal,
or right of the keeper. And
it was as if you were standing as the goalie, that right hand side was literally if you just tap it in
Yeah.
below him, there is zero chance, and he just lashed at it. And I think it is where I feel if Tanto's going to get a goal, it's without thinking.
yeah. But,
And
yeah, you're right.
that is kind of where it is. And I think when he's given time, we've seen it so many times already this season, given time and given a chance to think about it, he's a bit sometimes clunky with a touch. And then I think
his touch actually before the shot was a bit of a trampoline.
But then he gets
touch.
a bit like pressured, you
Yeah.
can see, and I think it is something in his game that if he can sort that out and just be a little bit more composed,
Yeah.
I think some of these chances he might, and I think they're the kind of things that Nathan Jones will be looking to coach into him, because I think some of the bits, and what I really liked, and it's going to seem like a really strange compliment to Alaf, is the amount of times as much I don't want to see it too much, that he was called offside. Because
Mm.
to me, it was for once showing we've got a player who's actually running
Running
off the
on the
last
last
man.
man.
And for me, I think that's something we've really lacked. And I think it's something he brings really well. And once again, once he tightens up that part of the game, I don't
Yeah.
want to see it over and over. And it can be a bit frustrating. But to see a player who wants to get in behind, and that stretches the defence, it then gives space to a Carey or whoever.
I think it's also why we found that like Leeburn was actually effective today
Mm.
with his flick-ons, because we had a laugh, we had Carey sort of getting closer to him and able to get on the end of the flicks, or like you said, like running off the last man. So it was working really well. And I think you're right about a laugh. Like we spoke about him being quite raw last week, and I think that is a sort of pretty apt description of him, especially when it comes to his finishing.
He reminds me a little bit in some ways of how when Thierry Small first came to us and was
Yeah,
incredibly erratic, and I think
yeah.
he still is, but he had fine-tuned that a little bit more as time gone on. And you see him this season, for example, for Preston.
Mm.
I kind of see that maybe there is a similar progression for Alaf where he needs to tighten those bits up, but that does take time. And with the right coaching, who, if you're going to have a coach who's going to get the best out of a player, I wouldn't have many better people than Nathan Jones.
No.
And the more I see him, where my worries at the beginning of the season and kind of maybe not seeing quite what I wanted from him, I'm really excited about.
There's a lot of
the-
potential
Yeah, I
there.
think there's a lot of
Yeah.
potential, and I just hope we can, as I say, fine tune that down and just kind of
I think we'll only
sand
see
off some of the rough edges.
we'll only see him get better, I
Mm.
think, as he goes on.
Mm.
But yeah, it was disappointing that he couldn't tuck it away. But you felt again like we were getting more and more on top, and that it was just a matter of time before we sort of got a goal.
Mm.
Um,
Well, and I think when you move on from there was one really big final chance from there, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that Lionel Messi had got onto the pitch
True.
because Sonny Carey just starts dancing through players, caught the ball so sweetly. It was just a little
Whipped
bit
it
out,
a
and
bit
he
far.
just whipped it. And I don't know. Look, after a run like that, I'm not going to be too critical of it. And there's days where that just drops in the bottom corner, and it's a brilliant goal. But I thought, yeah, once again, that showed.
We started to
in-
see glimpses of that again.
Yeah, so glimpses of that, and I thought it was a really nice to see. And it does create that question sometimes behind. We've said how impressive he was in that centre mid role, and maybe that could be something he adapts to. But I think when I do see him naturally just kind of floating around that kind of centre attacking mid, it is where I do.
It's because he picks the ball up on the edge of the box, and then, like you said, he's got really good feet actually, and he's not afraid to have a shot. He had another one in the first half actually, where he drilled it just past the post, and you're always just waiting for him to sort of beat a man and just open up to have a shot. And yeah, he's really unlucky, and I think that was literally the last kick of the first half.
Yeah, and I found it really frustrating because I felt that goal going in would have just given us exactly what we deserved for that first half. And I think what happened, obviously, we go in 0-0 and we go into that second half. And I think the second half we started very slow. I thought it was very similar to the first half.
Yep.
Oxford on top. Once again, not really doing much. And
No.
one of the things I'll put out at 100% as well in that whole game is defensively, we were back to our absolute solid best. We were winning every header. We were tracking back. I felt we had that lovely blend of Jones pushing out and the cover being in behind.
Yep.
I think definitely formation-wise, it was the most attacking press I think we've done in regards to.
Yeah.
I felt we left actually. It's almost like we felt more comfortable with the quality of what Oxford had because I felt we
left a few
we left-
moments.
we
where
left
it was a
moments
bit
where they could
shaky.
easily have like countered and had quite a few players. We felt confident in our ability to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And I
think
quite like that.
Yeah, no, it's good, and you're taking a risk, but you've got to take calculated risks at times if you want to get the players up the pitch and obviously get that goal. But you're right, like we were definitely more solid at the back this time around, and Jones again is like every header just
Just
he's going again. Like the ball was sort of you could see the ball like floating over, and you can see him running towards it, and he'll just leap into on.
he was incredible, just throwing himself about, and I think even at one point he missed a tackle and he just got back on it and just absolutely floored the guy, got the ball. He was just an absolute machine.
Yeah. He just played to what we expect from him. But
Yeah, and I think once again, once the team starts getting confidence back in, we start to see what is the crux of what we are so good at. And there will be a special mention. It's a player we're going to go on to a little bit later, but there was also one moment and the ball got absolutely knocked up the pitch, really high up, and it was Gillespie. And I had the most horrifying.
I was in.
I had the most horrifying memories of times gone past where I think even Gillespie himself, but Charlton players have just let it bounce and then someone's got on and they've been floored down. He got the most sensational header backwards, like looped back, that
Yeah.
didn't look possible.
No.
And balls of steel to do it, but fair play to him, because that was one of those moments where you let that bounce, you could be in a hell of a lot of trouble, and it was so lovely to see that, because it was the kind of game, and I think the way that first half, when it started, I worried that we've had all that dominance in the first half, we should be ahead,
He
but are we going to let Oxford just get a
mm.
silly moment, a one-off kind of chance? And even though I didn't feel they were dangerous, any team can do that.
Yeah, and Gillespie we've spoken about in the past, like, he has got a little bit of a ricket sometimes in his locker,
Mm.
but he was a calm head
Mm.
in that game, and actually he went back to what he's absolutely incredible at, is just absolutely doing the basics right, and you actually felt quite calm when he was on the ball today, which I don't always. So
No.
yeah, no, he had a great game actually.
Yeah, and I think obviously substitution coming on first of Kelman was a really not lovely to see, just as a Charlton fan, 'cause I think we've been screaming out for it.
Yeah,
I thought the one positive I would also say, Tim, and that once again it's another player we are going to go into a little bit more depth, but I thought instantly the link-up play, the intelligence, that he does play at a level above of what we've been playing recently, and we discussed it so much that even when he wasn't scoring goals, he was impacting games.
yeah,
And I just thought instantly we saw that. He was dropping in, playing the pass back off into the midfield, creating space, and getting back up on the last man. And I thought he was making an impact. But I did also at that time feel we were lacking something a little, and I felt we were struggling just.
yeah. I think maybe a little bit of a spark, someone that
Yeah.
was again gonna sort of break the lines and sort of jiggle past someone and create something.
And I'd argue the perfect kind of blend. And actually, I think this is on both fronts probably to this, is TC coming on, which TC coming on as a sub, I'm just loving more and more. And I know he is going to be an integral part to starting games as well, but I think there's such a brilliant side of him coming on as a sub. The other one that actually I thought was really, really needed at that point, and I thought Anderson had a good game, albeit
Yeah,
once again he's not the most technically gifted player. I thought
you know what you're gonna get, don't you?
yeah, I thought it was a little bit more highlighted in certain parts where he was getting onto the pitch. He gets a little bit. It's almost like he gets a headache when he gets to a certain point. Even though he does side to side, he does make some quite nice
Yeah,
passes. But
yeah.
I thought it was a perfect time for him to be replaced by Doherty as well, who's an experienced head, who we know
Energetic.
we've said before, in certain games where the midfield suits him, he will get on the ball, push forward, and he has got that experience just to play a game out
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
And I thought the mix of those two,
yeah.
I
They
think,
were good subs.
well, pretty much instantly, TC ran up against their defender, who I think was subbed off not long after, cut in
Inches, wasn't it?
inches. And I thought when he first hit it, it was further than it was, but he caught that beautifully. I mean,
It's a lovely cut in as well.
yeah, yeah. And what I like with those cut-ins is we've seen it so many times this season, but defenders seem to struggle because I think he's got that such burst of pace. It's
Yeah.
like they don't want to let him go down the wing, so he will keep creating those pockets of space.
Well, also if the defender lunges in when he's sort of nudging it past them, then he's in the box. He's there giving a pen away, so they've got to be careful. So that's what, like you said, TC's so good at sort of fronting up his man, nudging it to the side, and he loves that little shot in from on the angle, and it was so close.
We-
That would have
we-
been beautiful. Actually,
Actually said it before as well. If you're a tiring fullback towards the end of the game who've been pressed hard, and realistically, we did go through quite a lot of spells of dominance, once again, without maybe creating as much as we maybe should, especially in that second half, their players would have been pressing hard, getting tired, and I thought it was just the absolute perfect time for him to come on. And as soon as that happened, I felt it was a game where I didn't feel worried about losing at that point, but I was worried it might be the game that gets away from us and the game we
Yeah.
should win,
yeah.
and we really needed to win, but it just wasn't going to quite happen.
And I think that's where those players are so key. And obviously, it proved to be the case in the end. But having those people that you can bring on to really sort of turn the screw, and then a goal scorer who I know he's waited a long time to get his first, but I said at the time, and I think he's going to prove it. Once he got that first goal, I think he's going to build confidence. And we saw what he could do at League One level. If he can do anything like that now, with a few goals under his belt, I think he could be a real danger.
And at the end of the day, the League One to Championship level, yeah, 100%. I understand there's a big jump up. There's lots of different players, etc. But at the core of what he was at Leyton Orient, he was a
Finisher.
who would get into positions that realistically, whether you're running up against Championship or League One, if you get into those positions and you get a bit of confidence behind him, he'll finish, he'll take touches, and he will create that space just to get a pop shot off. And the goal itself, I mean, we'll quickly talk through. TC once again doing a similar thing. I thought really good intelligence, not just to throw the shot off. He knew maybe it was getting a bit tighter. Played the ball off to Coventry. Coventry played it back into him, and I thought the fact he had a man who pressed up behind, pressed into him, the intelligence just to play that little pass, which once again, decision making.
Yeah.
Been a bit critical of TC sometimes that he does maybe not quite make the right decision. It was perfect, but up to that point, it's the kind of point in the game where we have struggled and we haven't taken the chances. That first touch to lay it off and then that finish was just the most beautiful, just classic striker.
Oh yeah,
goal.
that's what I was about to say. It's your textbook sort of striker's
And he
finish.
caught it so sweetly, and it reminded me when I look back on the good goal scorers we've had of recent years, which have been, to be fair, up to the last couple, much more limited.
Yeah.
But we look at what Alfie May was so good at. We look at what Matty Godden last year was so good at, and Kelman clearly with that finish, and I think with confidence behind him, is the kind of guy who will get you that goal when you need it.
Do you know who actually reminded me of as well, like a bit old school, but Darren Bent used to score those sort of goals where he'd just take one touch and drill it. And that's where you get those strikers who are just instinctive. That's all they need is that one little good touch out of their feet. And actually, you've got the defender behind you who's not necessarily always anticipating you to hit it that early. So he's hit it early, and actually, like you said, he caught it so well, and it's right in the corner. Like keepers have got no chance from that.
And his
distance.
celebration said it all. And I saw an interview after the game as well, and you could just see. I think the fact he got his goal and he needed that so badly, and then he's been out for, I want to say it's
7 weeks.
7 weeks maybe. I think it was, and just the relief in it, because you could see. I think that first goal was kind of the point for him to kick on, and then he's had straight away.
It's gutting, actually, yeah.
Well, and then the worry was, do you get him back, and is it going to take another 4 or 5 weeks for him to get that next goal? And it kind of delays that kind of kicking on. I think to get it instantly is like you erase those 7 weeks and you start back exactly where you're from. And arguably, his first goal was a bit of a bizarre, strange
angles.
This was like a proper confidence building. Okay, now he's going to go into that next game really up for it, and no, it was
perfect. It was genuinely perfect. And weirdly, actually, I texted you, didn't I? I think at half time when I said, oh, Kelman's come on and get the goal, and obviously he did end up doing it. But you're saying as well about the composure that TC had to sort of find that little pass. You're bang on actually, because those little passes actually they are. At the time, they look quite like innocuous. They don't look like they're really much, but actually, in a tight space, it's a lovely little pick out. And funny enough, I watched a few sort of fan videos of the goal back, and you could hear almost there was a bit of a, like the fans groan when they're like, "Oh, you're taking a bit too long to create the chance." And actually, the calm build-up was what ended up with the great goal that we ended up with. So. Actually, it's just proving as well that we can sort of take our time on the ball a little bit and create those little chances.
Yeah, and I think with TC, the thing that I am happy with most to say, because it wasn't a technically amazingly incredible pass, it was the football brain.
Yeah.
And that for me is something that with TC, I think decision making has been some of his letdown over years. And once again, if we can see that side of him develop and become more consistent, we've got a hell of a player, because we know the raw physical away from technical ability is frightening. So if you could put those bits in, and some of it, as I say, is not just the technique of being able to hit a ball or play the most incredible De Bruyne-esque pass, it is the football brain of actually making a right decision, holding off, playing the pass when you need to. And that's what he just nailed on there. And I think once that goal went in, I felt we were back in our comfort zone. We're 1-0 up. We do not let you score.
We played it out well.
To be honest, it was a horrible end. It was.
Well, we ended up running the balls into the corners.
Yeah, Ramsey's injury. I'm really hoping, because I think he's going to be quite important in the Norwich game. Personally, I think I'm
not sure he'll make the Norwich game. I mean, it looked like it was a tweak of something, and they reckon that he'd sort of picked up a minor injury during the week. So whether it's just tweaked it. They probably won't risk him if it's.
Think on that basis, really, and I think you just got to pray to the gods that I think Amari Bell, because I think we need that physical, athletic side.
I actually thought Bell might be in the squad today, because he posted up a thing on Instagram saying like loading or something like that. So he's clearly quite close to being back, and I know Jones has mentioned that there's a few that are very close to coming back. I didn't expect to see Kelman in the squad today. I hadn't heard anything.
Then we discussed, haven't we? Said, what do we always say? Because he always says, they're another week closer. But we have no idea which players, and to be honest, I suppose surprised. You get to a point where you don't get surprised at anyone being in
No.
the squad because of that.
But how effective is that actually? Because Jones has obviously kept it very quiet that he's going to be in the squad, and all of a sudden he comes off the bench and scores a goal, and then maybe their side of the management don't expect to see him on there
I
either.
think they don't.
So,
I also think it's probably the absolute best way of man managing as well, because when you say a player's only a couple of weeks off and then you feel after those 2 weeks they're not quite ready,
yeah.
you get the pressure from the fans. Whereas I think this way, I know exactly, I understand completely the reasons he does it. And as fans, you're frustrated because you can't find anything anywhere.
You hear like an
Um,
odd rumor on Twitter.
Yeah,
saying
so
it.
you're frustrated, but realistically, it's the way he does things, and
Yeah.
you're right. It's kind of the right way to do things, and yeah, the game kind of just off from there.
I
Because
think they pushed a little bit for an equaliser, but I think we did what we
they
did
had the
best. Like you said.
lightest ever huff and puff, didn't
Yeah,
they?
there
Really,
wasn't
but
really anything there. That
yeah,
was good.
no, I think any of my worries and any of my concerns were just I knew how important these 3 points were for us. I think I was
Yeah.
more worried that just something freaky,
Silly
happened,
goal
a
or
silly goal, and to be honest, a game that once again we'll go on to. Keeper wise, Kaminsky, I felt had a silly goal in him today
Yeah.
because,
Shaky.
yeah, he was shaky. But yeah, no, we held out the game and brilliant when that final whistle went. You could just see the
There's a
players,
relief from there.
yeah, the players, the way they went off. I just had a smile. I stood up and just was like, it wasn't even the normal, really kind of. It was just
It's
relief.
a relief.
Yeah.
It's a relief because we've already said, but like all of a sudden we've got a little bit of a breathing space, which is massive actually.
And Kelman can also be to blame that I screamed so hard when the goal went in. My son started screaming across the room, crying his eyes out because I'd celebrated so hard. So Kelman needs an apology to him. But yes, so yeah, no, I thought
Yeah, bloody brilliant result. And
perfect what we need. I do feel as a game, looking back over it, we made it harder than what it should be. And I think we still
I think on another day we scored 2 or 3 in that
Do you think
game.
another day looking at it, it's like the Blackburn game? Because I felt it was
Yeah.
probably the most similar to that of all the games we've had. I just
Yeah.
feel on that day, everything kind of went in, and this day,
Yeah.
we just didn't quite get the run of the green on finishing, or we weren't quite. And I think some of that also,
Before
the biggest one was confidence, wasn't it? It was,
yeah, 100%. I mean, before kickoff 1-0, you'd have snapped someone's hand off for that, So
Mm.
yeah, delighted.
Well, let's move on from there then. So we're going to stick with the format of kind of last week, and we're going to pick out some kind of key players, which there are a decent amount this
To be
week.
fair, I mean the whole team.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I think this week
good.
everyone is on that kind of side of things. I think there's one that we'd be on a slightly more critical eye, and one we are going to bring back in a not necessarily negative light, but I think someone who there was clearly maybe not quite at his absolute best. But let's start on. I think actually let's start on those negatives because I'd quite like to, and then just get onto the positive train of what that game was really. I think number one to start on that, who is the one who I would say had a really personally quite a poor game, and I think we're lucky he wasn't tested more, was Kaminsky. And I don't know what he'd had for breakfast this morning, but Christ alive, I mean, the punch he had, that's the kind of like almost like own goal punch.
Yeah. With Kaminsky as well, I think one of the biggest traits and the sort of best things about him is sort of he comes across as quite commanding generally and like quite in control of what's going on. Today it was like he had a couple where like he passed it out left to Apter and completely missed him and just put it out for either a throw in or a corner. He had ones where, like you said, he would go up for it and sort of punch it when he could clearly have like sort of gathered it in or
Gathered it, or if you are going to punch, bloody make
Put
sure
your
you
fist
put
through
your
it.
fist through it.
Yeah.
His distribution from goal kicks, especially at the end of the game when we needed it lumped from
Leverage
one end
out
of the
of
other
play,
pitch. We got Leeburn up there, we'll flick it on and then hopefully get it into the corner. He's hardly clearing the halfway line and kicking it straight to him, and they're on the attack.
The other thing that worried me a little bit was most of the times he was doing these sort of clangers, he was just sort of shrugging and saying like, almost not taking massive amount of responsibility. I think there's a couple where he drilled it out for a throw in from a goal kick, and he sort of, the hand up. Sorry, boys, but yeah, he looked definitely shaky. And actually, if we were going to concede today, like you said, actually, my worry was that it might have been through something that he did negative.
And I think with Kaminsky, I really, really like him. I think he is solid and he's a very good shot stopper. The more the season has gone on, I think I've seen some of his erratic, a bit bizarre decision making. It's not the first game we've talked about him going for a punch that's a bit strange or distribution. And I think there maybe is some question marks. And I think some Charlton fans, and I think the question there is if to this point we'd had, for example, tail end of last season, Mannion was playing brilliantly.
Mm.
If we had Mannion in the starting lineup now, do you think we've seen a massive jump? And I really felt at the beginning of the season the answer there was definite because I felt
Mm.
he offered that solidity that maybe a Mannion and a Maynard Brewer. There's a reason they were jumping in and out between each other. But I'm not 100% sure of
That's actually a
recent
really hard one
games.
to answer, actually, because at least with Kaminsky, and I think this is probably Jones's trailer for, is that he's got the experience under his belt. So he's played in Premier League,
Mhm.
he's played at Championship level for a long time as well. So I think that's probably was the thinking getting him in, is that he's a much more established goalkeeper who's come up against sort of quality players regularly. Um, you're right. Like, who knows if Mannion was still number one? For all we know, like he would have been just as successful.
Mm.
Because before we went on our bad run, Kaminsky was like second best clean sheet record in
Mm.
the league.
And he's
And I
put it
know,
up there.
yeah, no, exactly, and that's obviously partly down to our back line, but he plays a part in that as
Mm.
well. And so he's
Exactly.
clearly
He's
a
had
good
some good
goalkeeper.
performances. He had some
Yeah.
really good shot stops and stuff. So I don't think there's any. It's not necessarily directly criticising because I don't think it's like we're looking at him as, oh my god,
Mm.
what an issue we've got there. And I look at, for example, some of the keepers in the league. I've been
Oh,
watching a few games recently, like the Norwich keeper,
yeah,
for example, and I'm hoping going into where kind of we're going Boxing Day that he can
yeah,
sprinkle some of that magic over that game because he's a shaky one.
yeah.
And you do see
Oh, we played a
games.
few teams where their goalkeepers have been pretty rogue.
Yeah, I can't. I know we have had a
Yeah.
few this season. I want to say the Blackburn keeper was similar.
Yeah, I think it
From
was.
memory, I think it
It
was.
was. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's one that definitely in this game, I was so glad it wasn't against better opposition attacking wise because I did feel it was something.
But I think as well it was highlighted today because all of the teams sort of played pretty well, and he was the one that sort of stood out a bit as a sore thumb in a way, like in terms
Also
of not
common
being on.
sense. I can't understand why he wasn't kicking a ball over the halfway line when he's a championship goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Normally can do that absolutely fine. I just found it all.
It was definitely an off game for him, but luckily for us, I mean, he's not had too many of those
Mm, mm.
over the season. So yeah, he didn't have a good game, but let's just hope it's a one off. You know, like
Yeah.
players have those games, don't they?
Or if he chooses to have his bad games, they're against teams like
Yeah,
Oxford, where we are
exactly.
relatively on top. So,
Exactly.
um, so I think moving on to the other one that I don't think I'm going to say I felt had a bad game, but I was really excited when I saw him in the starting lineup, and I just felt wasn't quite at it for most of the game, and that was Rob Apter.
Yeah, I'm in two minds with his performance because I think he did have spells in the game where he was giving us quite a good option down the wings. His pace is always really dangerous, and I think he is willing to take people on. I think one thing that he did struggle with, and this is probably down to him being out the side for a little while, was when he was getting pressed quickly. He was quite. I think he was a bit rabbit in the headlights a little bit.
Yeah, because he lost the ball. I mean, I didn't feel he felt as confident running up against player, albeit I think there was in the first half he beat a man and got a free kick in quite a good position that Bree took and actually created a chance. But
Yeah,
I felt when he was on the ball, yeah, exactly that. He felt rusty, felt like he didn't
yeah,
have that confidence. Once again, we'll caveat because he's yet another winger to have the elaborate title of playing left wing back. He's not a left
out
wing
of
back,
position.
and he's out of position. So there is also a side which is we've said he's quite confident on both feet, but to come back into the squad in that position, there's no one who's really taken that position. And some talented when we look at Ibi Fuller, Ana Hernandez, TC, all of them have kind of struggled with that
Yeah,
role.
it's true.
But I just felt there's a few games where he got caught, a few times where he got caught on the ball, and he got like for example, one point he got dispossessed, and they were on like a pretty
Yeah,
dangerous attack, and I don't know, I felt he probably improved as
I
the
think
second half went on.
you could probably say it was rust in terms of like him being out of the sort of starting lineup for quite a
Mm.
while now. To be fair, and it's his first full start. The other thing I'd say as well, he did have little moments, and like you said, he got much better into the second
A
half.
really good shot across
Yeah, that
goal.
one that was a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
dangerous shot, and actually keeper made a good save. So, probably he grew into the game.
Mm.
But yeah, you're right in saying that he maybe started off shaky. Um, and I think again he is another one that with more game time, more experience, we're going to see him get better and better. And actually, these are probably just teething issues that will go.
Yeah, and once again, he is a player who is making the step up from League One. He's a young player. There's
Yeah,
lots of bits and pieces in there, and also in a game like today, he's highlighted as maybe a little bit more negative as well, because everyone else around him as well was
Really
having
good.
such good games. So I think it's not to say, I don't think there's any, I think you'd have to be a bit of a madman to come out today's game and say anyone played awfully.
Yeah.
He just, for me, Kaminsky, for obvious reasons, and Apter just stood out as being a little bit below what the rest of the team were kind of
I
offering.
remember when we signed him, all the Blackpool fans on Twitter were like, "Oh, he's not ready for that level." Blah blah blah. Actually, he has proven that he is. He is actually ready for the level because he's had a few games where he's actually caused a lot of problems for opposition defences. What it does probably highlight a little bit, and obviously we've already gone over it, but is that he's probably still another one that's quite raw, and that it might take him a bit of time to fine tune his game to actually get to the stage where you feel confident all the time he gets onto the ball.
Yeah, and I'd also like to see him developing in his more natural position
Yeah,
as well.
play him on the far
Yeah.
wide right.
Which, as players start to come back in now, we'll start to see that more. So,
Mhm.
yeah, definitely not one to criticise too heavily, but definitely for me stood out as a slightly poorer performance in the grand scheme. So, let's get off that negative train now, and let's move on to the positives. There were so many in that game, and I think no better place to start than someone who we have been critical of in the past, but I thought of a free centre back partnership. There was Lloyd Jones, who I thought had in a sense a really good game, and I thought Gillespie trumped him, and I thought Gillespie was the best of those back three, of a back three that all had a really good game, and I was so impressed. Once again, I know I don't think he is at that level. I think he'll have games at that level every so often. I don't think you will see that on a consistent basis, but when we do, you do see why he is still a big part of our
Yeah,
squad.
and you see as well why Jones does put his trust in him because when he's at his best and he does the basics right and he plays to his strengths because we know he's not blessed with pace. We know he's probably not the most natural on the ball. He's got a great ping on him, which we see regularly, and actually every game he's probably one of our best long ball
Mm.
hitters in the team. But what he did brilliantly today was, like you said, he just did all of those sort of really basic sort of things where he would read his man brilliantly, clear him out, also foot on the ball and sort of spraying it out to the left and right
Mm.
quickly,
Mm.
getting us up the pitch,
Mm.
like all these things that we've been wanting to see for quite a while. He was right on it today. And you're right, like Jones almost, we sort of get fed up of putting him in the team
Mm.
of team of the week every
Mm.
week because we guaranteed it almost. But when Gillespie has a good game, you really notice it because we know he has that again in his locker. So
Well, and also as well, I love seeing it because away from some of the criticism we sometimes give him for whatever it might be, as a player of like our club and what he's given to us, I absolutely love him.
no, he's like a cult hero.
Yeah,
Said it before,
I
but
absolutely love him. I just find it frustrating because I'd love to say that he is that good that we're always
inside
just, yeah, we're
forever.
doing what we do with Jones because there's a personality in what he's given the club.
Yeah.
He goes down pretty historically with moments,
Mm.
but I am found to be quite frustrated with him sometimes, and it is the one of the kind of back line that we are highlighting too often. But
Yeah.
yeah, days like today, as I say, just
Really good.
sensational.
Really, really good.
Yeah, no, brilliant. So let's move on from there to someone that, look, once again, he's a player we heap with a lot of praise, but someone I thought really stood out in this game just to do it to another level and just seemed to be everywhere whenever I looked at the pitch was Connor Coventry.
Yeah, Coventry again. He flies under the radar like regularly because of the role he plays and he does the dirty work and all that stuff.
And
But
he's normally not noticeable, but
well,
I
that's
thought he
it. But I
was.
think he's just such an engine, and like today he was just buzzing around everywhere. And I thought actually noticed actually he really came into his own towards the end of the game when we were maybe tiring. He was still the one going full guns, sprinting people down. And actually on those moments where they're pressing up the pitch trying to get the equaliser, he was one of the ones that was straight on them.
Mm.
And you need that at that time in the game, and that's someone who's been playing 90 minutes. Like he's clearly
Mm.
knackered, but he's willing to put the effort in.
And I think of that kind of midfield section, we had Croy Anderson, who I thought once again threw himself about, did well on that side, did the basics quite well.
Mhm.
But I thought with Connor Coventry today as well, what we did see as well was that slightly more technical. And I thought some of his passing was absolutely brilliant today as well.
Yeah.
We had a brilliant one where he played down, I want to say Leeburn, just kind of broke through their line
Yeah.
and put us in a really good attack. And I think we actually see it. And I think with Coventry, because he goes so under the radar sometimes, you actually have to kind of look at a lot of the time when we are actually having an attack or he will be involved in some capacity, and whether that's
Yeah.
hooking one in across from kind of deep, and I know him and Bree both love that technique of just whipping it first time
Mm.
when it's played back to them, but actually he's involved in an awful lot more of the actual
No,
quite
he is,
tight
he's just
possession, and like the goal today, rather than panicking, he's that cool, calm head who just played the pass
just
back to
pinged it
TC.
back to him. Yeah.
And I think you actually see he's involved in a lot more of the attacking, albeit a lot of the time it's not the clinical final ball. But it is a smart football brain, and it is a really vital part to what is important in that whole cogs together of a team. And
He
I noticed it so much more today. But I think sometimes we maybe take him for granted with how
100%,
much he does that
100%.
in other games.
Yeah, he like I say, like he's not that glamorous position where you sort of he gets the glory week in week out. But you're right, he is a completely crucial part in that Jones cog
Mm.
in the wheel. So yeah, he played out of his skin, and I think just his effort, his work rate, but also like you said, his footballing brain,
Mm.
the passing, top notch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, brilliant game. So moving on to, we've got two more of the starting lineup, and then I think some obvious mentions of the subs bench. But one that I think when I first mentioned it to you, you maybe raised your eyebrows a bit, but I think maybe you've heard my argument.
Yeah.
I was so impressed with James Bree today.
Yeah, look, I fully understand why he sort of stood out to you because we've said that there've been a few games he started so well when he came in and he was whipping balls in for fun, like getting so many assists. We saw that drop off.
Mm.
I think that did coincide with our form dipping.
Mm.
But today he went back to that sort of, and I think you made a good point earlier. Actually, defensively, he was probably the best we've seen him in terms of like.
Without doubt, and I don't know if that once again coincides with the fact that the opposition we're up against are a bit poorer. Because I
Yeah.
think there is games where, and I think the Brum game, for example, Damari Gray just kind of brushed him off, and these are very good quality players.
Top level.
Yeah, so maybe it suited him better defensively like that. But what I liked about Bree is that we saw what we know we're going to get from him, which is those whipped in balls, albeit a few of his corners weren't as good as normal. But the free kick, there's definitely one free kick, which I think was one we're talking about from Apter, where he whipped in as when he catches a ball sweetly, it is sensational. And the one thing we need to sometimes get better at is making sure we are taking advantage of that and getting on the end of it.
Yeah.
But what I was so impressed with him today was I thought that little kind of mix between him, he was playing quite well with like Tanto, Sonny Carey,
Yeah.
and I just thought those little passages of really quick play, and I think with him, where he has had that experience at varying kind of levels and is a bit of a more technically gifted player, he's willing to play that ball quickly. And I think there was
Yeah.
actually times where, if you look at it, he was actually playing some passes to, like, for example, Tanto and getting frustrated because it was almost like he was getting frustrated that he wasn't seeing what he saw in playing that quick pass and playing that one.
He's got a really good sort of footballing brain in terms
Yeah.
of playing the little through balls. But the other thing I'll say as well, for for a while he's sort of been pinned back as a more defensive sided player.
Mm.
Today he had the freedom to get up the pitch, and we saw like he had that really good opportunity where he smashed it at the keeper. But also, like you said, he was able to get himself further up the pitch and start playing those nice little threaded through balls that he's so good at, and also playing little interplay with, like you said, Carey, Tanto, and all the rest of them. So, yeah, he was given license to do those things that he's so good at, and that's where we want to see him because that's where he's at his best. And I think we were able to show that today that given the opportunities to get himself into those key positions he's so effective in, we will see more and more of his performances coming back to a level we sort of saw previously. So
No, definitely. So
Yeah.
have I convinced you?
oh yeah, I'm sold. Yeah. No, fair play.
So the final one, the starting lineup, once again, one that goes with no surprise, and I think probably his best game of the season, Miles Lieber.
Yeah, well, it's ironic as well. Like, and this happened a few times on this podcast. Is we sort of highlighted him as not being up to it last week, and then he goes and does an absolute 360. And to be honest with you, it wasn't just how effective he was at sort of what we expect to see from him. It was his work rate, his level of sort of.
He won back the ball so many times, just like harrying their midfield. I think he had one where he like shoulder barged the player out and just got the ball and we were straight on the attack. You're right. I mean, it was a side which, once again, just everything we always discuss. If we can see that more often, because he is so clearly capable of it.
He's so talented as well.
Yeah.
Like again, we say it every week, but for his size, he's so good on the ball. And we saw more of it today, where balls lumped up to him, and actually he's taken it down, and he's played a quick little pass off, and now all of a sudden we're into a transition of getting the ball into the midfield and pushing ourselves back up the pitch, and that's where he's brilliant. That when he can get the control down, he can get the little flick on and with purpose. This is the difference, I think.
Yeah, and I think that also comes twofold, which is the more that certain players play with him as well, they'll learn what he's good at. And I
Yeah.
actually think we saw glimpses of that last year. I think there was a few times where Godden played alongside him, and
Mm.
you could see when Godden didn't have him, he'd drop maybe more into being a bit more of a playmaker. But as soon as he saw Leeburn on the pitch, he knew he was going to get those flick-ons. He'd play off the last man, and I think that's what Alaf was doing quite
I
well
was just
in.
about to say, you've got Tanto starting to get better at that, but also Kelman's the same sort of player where he'll play off the last man. So you've got those two will work quite well with Leeburn, and if he can get more fine-tuned at what he did well today, then we'll see more and more success in terms of pushing the ball forward.
So when it comes to Leeburn, I
Mm.
see there being one fly in the ointment, because I thought brilliant performance. When we know in the formation we play two
Mm.
strikers realistically, occasionally the one. When we do start to get to full fitness, do you see the future being a Kelman Leeburn, for example, or do you see it as Kelman Alaf? Because I think Kelman is the pretty
Mm.
odds-on one that is going to be in there. I think we've signed him for big money and we've signed him to be a starter. My worry is I'm not sure Kelman works with Leeburn as well, and I think sometimes with Leeburn I think Alaf seems to be, or that style of striker seems to be the perfect one to play off either Leeburn or Kelman, but not.
So now that we've got the option of Kelman, because obviously he's been injured for 7 weeks, so we haven't really had that option to rotate. What I personally think we'll see now is more rotation in terms of
Mm.
depending on the team we come up against. Because obviously Liban can be really effective against certain teams, and actually he might be pretty useless against another team.
Mm.
So we might look at who we're coming up against and say, actually, we'd prefer to have two quicker players up top,
Mm.
Tanto, Kelman, whatever we end up going for. And then other times where Liban's actually going to, like today, I thought he bullied their defenders. They couldn't deal with him.
And also, as well, I think there's an argument to say that if we can see those style of performances, and I think what we've got to realise, and I think where Nathan Jones sees this, is you shouldn't see whether you're playing 90 minutes, 20 minutes. You should see the impact you're making on the team.
Yeah.
And I think with Liban, what I would also be quite excited to see is that kind of performance, that kind of level of physicality, but in the similar vein of what we're talking with TC.
Yeah.
If he can come on in the 70th minute against tired defenders who've been running up against all day, and he can put those level of performances, which is matching his physicality, but matching that in with an incredible work rate and hassling players, we've also got an incredibly dangerous substitute to come on and make a difference. And especially in games where the beauty, if you can bring all those points as well, is he is an absolute man mountain. So at the end
Yeah.
of the game as well, when you want to whip the balls in, because that's naturally where every game goes when you're chasing games, he has it all in that side.
And you're right, because that's what we saw at the beginning of the year, actually, was he was coming off the bench. And when you see him coming on the pitch towards the end of the game, like 70, 60 minutes in, you're like, okay, he's going to bring us something different here. He's
Mm.
going to really start to like bully their back line. And as a defender, we always say this with TC, it's similar for Liban. A defender seeing him trot on, all of a sudden you're like, for fuck's sake, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Oh,
100%.
here he is.
And I think with Nathan Jones, I think the more I've seen what we've become with him, but also the signings and how he manages his squad, I'm really of the opinion that I think when Nathan Jones signs a player or has a discussion about being part of his squad, I think he says, look, leave your ego at the door.
Yeah.
You're not guaranteed minutes. You're not guaranteed this, that, the other. Of course, he'll have his players who do naturally start.
Yeah.
But we have got a 46-game season coming up, and you will be an integral part, whether that's as a substitute, whether it's this. You're no more important. Kelman's no more important than Leeburn.
Yeah.
Jones is no more important than Gillespie. Obviously, there's better players, worse players, but I think he builds his squads based around that, and I think the
Yeah.
players buy into it, and that's when I think maybe where, as fans, we naturally see what you do around the footballing landscape, and then you look at Apter, for example, and you go, oh, he must be annoyed, he must be that. Yes, he'll be frustrated, and yes, he'll want more game time, but I think that's part of the philosophy of what he's bought into.
Yeah, 100%. And we know that Jones utilises his whole squad because we see it. We've seen it ever since he came in, that he does use that whole sort of what he has in his arsenal, and he adapts to games depending on who we play against. So, like I said before, like Liban will be used in certain games, he might be dropped in others, but he's going to be obviously really important when he does come off the bench.
Mm,
So,
mm,
but yeah, today was so refreshing and actually just highlights again how good he can be,
mm.
which is what we all want to see.
Just
So,
need to see it more consistent.
and we want to see some
Yeah.
goals from him as well.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. But once again, we've discussed, look, if he is a vital part of a cog of a team, that means that the goals aren't the main part, but
mm,
it's allowing other things to come into play and he's creating stuff. Look, as I
you
say,
take it,
yeah,
really.
you take it. So, well, let's move on to the final of the two that I think we're really kind of key highlighting. Both coming on as subs. We'll start with one because it's just one I want to finish on, just because I'm just so happy for him. But TC is the first one. I don't think there's probably too much to say about him. I thought he had a brilliant game. I thought once again just showed the danger of him coming on as a substitute, and also I think the confidence that is brought just giving him a bit of a break and taking him out
Yeah,
the squad and actually
100%.
let him have a breather. And I know that can be frustrating for a player, but I think sometimes you do see it where players just are fatigued by poor form or negativity or whatever it might be. And sometimes bringing him out and just giving him those bursts of him being able to thrive by coming on later on and really show what he's about,
Mm.
I think it's doing him the world of good.
Do you know what as well was we spoke last week about his reaction to his goal and that maybe like he was letting the fans sort of get to him a little bit in terms of the stick he'd been getting. What I was really pleased to see today was that a level of maturity. I felt like he came on and he didn't have his head down or was sulking that he'd been on the
Mm,
bench. He came on, he changed the game. He showed, like you said, he showed a football in nous to come on and play some nice little passes, nearly score after about a minute of getting on the
mhm,
pitch.
mhm,
And we know how threatening he is, and we know what he offers. And he came on and just showed everyone exactly what that is,
mm,
which is complete danger, fronting his defenders up. He's got the ability to score good goals. And if he's not scoring goals, he's got the ability to play the pass that will set up the goal, which
mhm.
ended up happening.
Or
So
stretch out and
yeah,
sometimes
just drawing
sometimes
men out.
yeah, drawing men out because you see a lot of the time players, especially towards the end as well, they double up on him and that creates space
Yeah.
for someone around him to then move into and play the kind of pass he did for the goal. And it's yeah,
But like I say, just more like a maturity. Like, I was just impressed with that. You could tell he was like, all right, I've come off the bench. Let me prove what I can do as an impact player.
I think the most vital thing for TC this season, the more the season's going on, is that we are seeing incremental developments in his general how he's playing, how he's looking at the game, working on some of those negatives. And we saw it a few years back. He clearly is motivated to do that because we saw it where he struggled one season, was quite not very physical, was struggling on that, and apparently spent pretty much the whole summer in the gym and came back as a much
Yeah,
more
I
physical,
remember.
was kind of squaring up and like kind of shoulder barging players out of the way. And I think
He's
we
willing to
clearly,
put the shift in,
yeah,
isn't
clearly that is the case. And I think what we love to see in this is that is an incremental step in the right direction. We've just got to keep seeing that, and then as it goes on, that then really all culminates in a much more consistent basis that he's doing it. So
he? Yeah. And it's nice to know we've got him as an effective option off the bench if we're resting him for a game,
mm,
but he's still there ready to make an impact. So
yeah,
yeah, but
no,
fans must be delighted with him
yeah,
today.
no, definitely. And let's move on to the final one, the one that brought the biggest smile to my face, exactly what we need. And I think if there ever needed a player to sum up highlighting the issues we've had over the few
Mm.
weeks that have gone by and how desperately we needed him back, it'd be Charlie Kelman. And I have seen that goal, and I think the enjoyment it has given me, I think since the game, I must have watched that goal about 10 times.
Yeah.
And every time I watch it, I smile as much as the first because I just thought it was brilliant. It's exactly what he needed. And do you know what? As I say, I think what I said earlier is what resonates with me towards his performance. The goal is what brought me the most joy, but actually seeing what he brings to our team, the
Mm.
link up play, the dropping in deep, the playing the quick ball, just a first time pass back to a midfielder who then plays it out wide and we're on the attack. Something we've lacked so much. And I think he is such a key part of that. That maybe
Mm.
it only takes you to miss him for 6, 7 weeks to realise how important, even when he wasn't scoring goals, how important he was.
We spoke about like losing Coventry and how that impacts like us.
Mm.
Probably Kelman's actually in a similar boat in terms of what he brings up that end of the pitch. As if you've not got him there, all of a sudden you lose that energy. He's very dynamic as well, like the way he plays. He's very like looking like we've said how he plays off the last man, he creates problems, and he drops a bit deeper at times. And like you said, he buzzes around, he plays nice little short passes, and then he can also play those nice sort of to the wing passes that then get TC and Apter and others into the
Mm,
game.
mm.
So, and on top of that, we've been crying out for his goal, which he got obviously eventually. But the goal he scored today was different, as you said, to the first one that he scored, where it was a proper striker's finish.
Well, I was
And
worried when he scored his first goal. I can't remember. I can't even remember who it was against. It was that long ago.
no, I can't. But
Uh,
it was this sort of weird angle, wasn't it? Close.
but to me, I wasn't as convinced that was like the confidence booster
Mm.
because it was a bit of a strange goal. And as much as you just want to get that first goal 100%, this to me was like a proper. This was like proving a point.
Yeah.
This was I'm back with a bang, and you could see it from his celebration summed that up because you
Yeah.
could just see it was just an outburst of emotion, and he still had that after the game.
Yeah.
It meant the world to him.
Yeah, and it meant the world to the fans as well, because we've all been willing him so hard to like get his goal, and we've spent like decent money on him as well.
Mm.
And knowing actually that he's got those sort of finishes in his locker,
Mm.
and it's just that we hadn't seen them yet. And all of a sudden, when we need that striker, that sort of clinical finisher, he's there available, and all of a sudden we get that goal.
Mm.
And it's like actually that's what we've been missing for quite a while. We've created a lot of chances, but we've been sort of, we've not quite had that finished product. And he proved today that actually him being in the side can be the difference between
Yep.
us getting a draw. Well, if he doesn't come on today, I'm not saying we definitely draw the game, but we have a lot less chance of winning that game.
I'm not sure. I think he was the missing piece of what we need, and I think if you had to put him, for example, fully fit in that first half and into some of those positions, I think
would
we'd have
have
been
took
one up
problem.
before that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think actually everything in the game before had highlighted why so desperately we needed a player like that. And when he came on, I felt okay. Now if we do get that one next chance,
Mm.
hopefully it falls to him, and it did. So yeah.
But also, you're right. Like, just delighted for him because he seems like such a top guy actually
Mm.
as well.
Mm.
I think they played like a little video of him like giving out Christmas presents to, and like you can just tell like he's a nice guy and actually someone that generally really wants to do well for the club. And he wants to be that sort of focal point for us to score the goals and become that sort of target man. And I think that's what we will end up seeing him do as he goes on in his career at Charlton. But
No, definitely.
yeah.
Long may it continue. Long may it continue. So, so that wraps things up for the Oxford game. Quick thoughts on that, actually. I'm guessing you probably feel the same as me. Of all the teams I think we've seen this season, I felt the same against Blackburn, but I think
they're going down.
yeah.
I didn't see much quality in their squad, and I just think unless they can strengthen in January, I think they're going to struggle against teams, especially teams that can play through the middle, because we're not exactly the greatest at that, and we made them look quite average at times.
I'm worried for them more so. And so I even think when we discussed about some of the worries we had about Blackburn, for example, I still think there was little glimmers of hope. I have to admit that.
I had Oxford in my bottom three at the start.
Yeah, I did as
I
well.
think
So
they're gonna
I
go
think they're
down.
going to have I think it's going to be a long season for them.
Yeah.
So onwards and upwards. Obviously, we'll move on to just quickly looking over our next game, and it will be a Boxing Day clash at Carrow Road. A club that we obviously did a video on pretty recently. We've got a very close friend as well who's a big Norwich fan. I would love to have played them 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, they've definitely picked up form, and I think like all of a sudden once a team starts getting confidence, especially at home, and they've played some tough teams actually in the sort of opening run to Clements sort of opening few games, but they got a really good draw at Preston. That was a last gasp goal they conceded.
I watched a big chunk of the game, and I do still think they're a team that definitely do well. Clearly, they're not where they are without their flaws, and I think what we need to do is we need to be at our absolute best. Going to Carrow Road with there's quite a positive feel around his tenure and the way they've started. I think the most important thing will be solidity, and I think it's what we do well. And if we can carry on, I think the good thing is we have had those games in between. I think the Brum game and the Oxford game will have built this confidence back up. We'll go back into that game confident, and hopefully with a few more players still back, etc.
The only thing that concerns me a little bit is the midfield. I think they've got some quite good quality players in the middle of the park. And I think also McCarmer's sort of hit a bit of form. So
He's looked quite good.
dangerous.
I was going to say, I think he's quite a raw product.
They'll have Sargent back, I reckon, because he's been out for concussion. I think he might be back for that game as well. The only thing that does give me hope is their defence. And I know it probably has shored up a little bit more since Kelmans come in. But
I think the biggest change they've made is that Maatsen dropping into holding, and
yeah,
I think
holding it.
they're a little bit more solid because they've got him kind of
I still think they're
for it all.
gettable though. They're gettable.
100%, and
And
that's
actually, what we're good at as well is from like set pieces and things like that, which I could see us getting a goal.
so I look at against
Right.
Preston. I think their biggest threat against them was Thierry Small, and he was
Yeah.
causing a lot of problems, and that's that erratic kind of running
Yeah,
at players, and that's where they probably looked at their weakest.
yeah,
Well, I look at what we've kind of got as our, I suppose, trump cards. And when I look at, for example, Alaf, who has that similar play style, TC, Rob Apt, who's now kind of back in there, I think we've got enough there that we can cause some problems. I think the biggest one, as I say, we've got to be solid. We've got to stay in the game. We've got to make sure, because I think they are also a team that go in spells and they drop in and out of games, but when they're on top, they are quite dangerous. So we've got to make sure we don't capitulate in those moments like we had.
But also they've got quality, so we can't
Yeah.
let them
They've
get
spent
their foot on the ball.
They've spent 50 million
Yeah.
at 2 seasons, and as much as most people would argue, where the hell have you spent 50 million? It's still an investment, and
Yeah,
there still
yeah.
is a lot of talented players, albeit I think pretty.
Oh, well, look,
injuries.
we're away from home, and we're going to have to be on top of our game to get anything from that
Mm.
one. But what I will say is, it's a Boxing Day game, which makes it a bit different to your standard. Also, we've got really that buffer that we talked about now. So even if we did end up losing, which I hope we don't, but if we end up losing, it's not the end of the world. So
No, and I think strangely, I think it's probably I think the Brum game was a brilliant result. I thought the Oxford game was just what we needed. I actually think it's a time to make a statement of the fact that, yeah, look, this kind of form now is back to stay.
yeah,
Because I think with Norwich, they're in the position they're in, but as a squad goes, and now under kind of Clement, they are probably better than where they show in the table. So actually it is a bit more of a statement to say, actually, no, do you know what? We'll now go to Carrow Road away and we can get a result, whether that's a draw or nick a...
We've gone away to Birmingham and got a 1-1 draw. So
We've gone away to Ipswich. And
yeah.
3-0.
So we've got it in our locker.
We've gone away to
be
Sheffield
really-
United. We won 1-0. Like we're definitely, I think as teams set up, we're actually quite well set up sometimes to away games. We've just got to be careful. And what I want to see that we have eradicated, and I think slowly from the games where it is at its worst, is those mini capitulations in games, because I think Norwich are the kind of team who will jump on that in those moments, albeit they'll probably leave other parts of the game for us to kind of exploit. So
I think the longer the game stays at 0-0,
Hmm.
or that we can go 1-up,
it suits us.
it suits us. I think if we go 1-0 down, it's going to be a tough ask. But let's
I think Carrow Road getting nervy, 1-0, 0-0, 70th minute, that's probably where we're at our absolute time, isn't
and we scored a lot of late goals.
And I also think one thing that seems to come back into the squad and is really impressive, and I thought we saw it in the Oxford game, that fitness of kind of pushing into the 70th, 80th, 90th, we seemed back on that as well. So sure, helped by people like Croy Anderson who have legs today. So yeah,
it's going to be an interesting one.
Look forward to it.
There's a lot on the line with this one, so let's hope we get something.
Bragging rights for our mate as well. So so that ends up on the video for today then. As always, we will bring up the league table now. That lovely
It's a lot
buffer.
nicer than last week, isn't it?
Yeah, positionally not hugely different, but the buffer we've got there now, the 8-point buffer.
Yeah. Buffer's really the word of the week, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's very important.
Yeah.
A much nicer looking league table, and hopefully one that we can keep climbing up through and back onto our hopes of a promotion campaign.
Yeah.
It only takes one win for a Charlton fan to get carried away. So moving on from there, just to give a bit of an overview of our plans for the kind of Christmas games. So we will be covering all of the games. So our plan, as long as no last-minute colds or hospital trips come up, will be to record on the night of each game for it to be out the next morning. So we'll be having the Boxing Day game. I think it's the one on the 29th, and then we've also got the New Year's Day game. Hopefully the next morning after all those games, you'll be able to see our ugly mugs talking about the game. I think that's probably a good place to wrap it all up, and we will see you on the next one.